people know who Jorge Ramos is, by the way? Really? He's a jerk. All right. Jorge Ramos is advertised, and I think accurately, as the Walter Cronkite of Spanish-speaking America and the world. The network I was on is called Univision, or as in Spanish. How many people speak Spanish? Univision. Univision has more viewers than all of the American TV networks combined. Jorge Ramos is an extremely important and effective and quoted. He calls himself a journalist. I won't give Jorge the compliment of calling him a journalist. I like Jorge. I have not beat him in playing ping pong yet whenever I go to Miami, but he is someone who is easily described as a tribalist. Jorge was born in Mexico. He moved to the United States and he got his citizenship. He did not renounce his Mexican citizenship as is required by the oath of naturalization that he took. The goal in that interview was to get this guy who had recently been on the front page of the New York Times speaking out against amnesty and getting down to a Spanish-speaking audience, because it was translated on Univision, and make him look like some racist bigot. And it was important to them that, wow, this guy is from Georgia. Again, I asked that this be played so that I didn't have to spend the first 15 minutes of my speech explaining my motivation. And I hope everybody got that. I am here for the same reason that I joined the Marine Corps in 1969 when I was 17 years old. I am here tonight, and I was there then because I love my country. My other part of my agenda is that I firmly believe that for national unity, cohesion, and common sense, that the United States of America should have English as its common and official language. You'd be surprised how many people don't want that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on immigration per se on the national level. What I came to talk about most was Georgia and what you can do to stop what's going on and what you don't know what's going on. I'm going to give you a little insight, and then if I don't successfully tell you at least where to go to get more information and what to do, somebody please hit that in the questions period, okay? In the interview, I tried to get it out twice. It's one of my favorite things. It's an analogy that people like myself use. How many people have been to Disneyland or Disney World? How many people would ever consider breaking into Disney World if you knew you could not ride the rides? Nobody would. That'd be crazy. If using that analogy, let me also mention that it is a lot more difficult to break into Disney World than it is to break into the United States of America. But the point I'm trying to make is, Jorge made it a point, as does everybody on his side, and make no mistake about this. Let me establish this right now. People on his side are effectively arguing for open borders. See a lot more nods of the head in agreement than I'm accustomed to seeing. This is not a figure of speech. This is not my way of trying to scare people. It is a fact that our economic and media and philosophical and academic elite and political elite want to open the borders. Now, I'm not a member of any political party, and I promise you that tonight I'm going to say something that's going to make somebody mad. Is there any Democrats in the house? Just kidding, just kidding. All right, listen. On immigration, there isn't a nickel's worth of difference between a Republican in Washington, in Atlanta, in North Georgia, than a Democrat in any of those places. I give you my word, no matter what you are told, no matter how hard you want to think something, there isn't a nickel's worth of difference. The reason that the elite want open borders is twofold. For business, It is an endless supply of ever cheaper labor. For those of you in business, the most expensive part about running a business is the labor. Okay, if you can decrease your labor charges by 50%, you have increased your profits by 50%. And people who come here, whether it's legally or illegally, will take the low-paying jobs. I'm 63 years old. I used to say I was 62. I am 63. When I was a kid, we worked in McDonald's, or we worked at the local hot dog stand, or I got fired from an asphalt job because I found out that I was only 16 and not the 18 that was required. But we did a lot of jobs that people didn't grow up thinking, wow, I can't wait to go out and lay asphalt in 90-degree heat. But I did it, okay? A lot of people who come here legally or illegally from other countries commonly take, and throughout our history, commonly take the jobs that are low paying. If you are here illegally, you'll take even a lower wage. And you heard Jorge Ramos say, wow, they're making 5 or 10 times as much as they did in what he says their country of origin. See, he's very careful not to say their home country. It's a word game. What he's pointing out is they're not going to leave because they have a job making 10 times as much as they can at home. Duh. Amen. Hooray. Jorge hit it right on the head. So if you'll try to keep that in mind, if people who are here illegally do not have a job, they will eventually migrate back to where they came from. So here is the big, I'm going to do questions, okay? Here is the big point you have to remember. You are being told, and we as a country are being told, that there's only 2 choices. There's either deport everybody who's here illegally by sundown tomorrow, and we're going to tell you that number is 11 million. Or you do another comprehensive immigration reform, amnesty, legalization, whatever name you want to put on it. Either deport everybody in a boxcar, oh my gosh, like the Nazis. Or do comprehensive immigration reform and everything's going to be okay in the morning. It's not, okay? As I pointed out there, in 1986, the Chamber of Commerce and the far left was successful in convincing Ronald Reagan that he should sign into law a bill passed by the Congress that said we are going to punish employers for hiring illegal labor. We are going to secure the border. Right after we legalize everybody that's here illegally. And folks, that number is only 1 million. Don't worry, everything's going to be okay in the morning. Reagan signed the amnesty. What ended up happening was 3 million people. And if you think the borders are secured, and if you think employers have any chance of being punished for hiring illegal labor, especially now under Obama, then you may believe I'm going to stop on the way home and buy a hairdryer. Okay? My point is this. Legalization didn't work in 1986. It wouldn't have worked in 2005 when Bush was going to try it. It wouldn't have worked in 2007 when they tried it. It wouldn't have worked in 2013 when they tried it. It is a trick. But once they legalize this next batch, which they're telling you is 11 million, remember it was 3 to 1 in 1986. They told us it was a million, million and a half. It turned out to be about 3 million. Now they're telling you it's 11 million. It's a complete lie. But use that 3 to 1 ratio. What if they legalize 30 million people? Here's my point. They want open borders because people who come here will work for lower wages. And people who came here legally, illegally, who have been rioting in the streets for 30 years demanding another legalization are not your basic conservative, small government, low tax voter, which is the goal is to get them to be a voter so this becomes a one-party country. Now I've been going around talking about this for 15 years. Ann Coulter has a book out called Adios America. I recommend that you read it. But what Ann Coulter has done is A, eliminated the necessity for me to write a book, and she has essentially said what people like myself have been preaching for 15 years. Get this. In Georgia, we have more illegal aliens than they have in Arizona. It's not my measurement, this is from the Department of Homeland Security. In Georgia, before he was ordered to and obeyed the order from the Chamber of Commerce to stop talking about illegal immigration altogether, Republican Governor Nathan Deal told us that we were spending $2.4 billion every year on the crime of illegal immigration. $2.5 billion, guys. Does anybody remember what the hot issue was last session? Wasn't it almost a $1 billion tax increase for highways and bridges? You see how the media herded everybody towards a transportation tax increase, and everybody went crazy. Oh my gosh, $1 billion. The media is essentially herding you away from what I'm telling you. The media does not want you to know that we're spending, that was 2010, by the way, when the governor said that in his campaign. But just use $2.5 billion. People should be running down the streets with their hands over their head like that little kid from Home Alone. $2.5 billion a year, folks, on illegal immigration when we have a labor problem, when we have a wage problem. Illegal immigration drives, as does all immigration, by the way, legal or illegal, keeps wages low. That is the deal. That is the effort towards open borders. So, in Georgia, in 2006 and 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 we missed, 13 and 14 we passed laws. Some of them got a lot of press attention, some of them did not. 2006 was a big one, Senate Bill 529. 2011, we had worldwide coverage. House Bill 87. State laws aimed at protecting jobs, benefits, and services for people who are in the country legally. Not just Americans. Everybody who's here legally. New immigrants, whatever. Those laws were put in place to save our jobs, benefits, and services, and now they are all but being ignored. You don't know it because the media makes sure you don't know it. So just for my own enlightenment, how many people get their news exclusively from a newspaper? Cool. How many people get their news from a combination of the radio, television, the newspaper, and the internet? Okay. If you want to know what's going on in immigration, you can go to a website called Numbers USA. And in the back, I have some cards. I don't think I have enough for everybody, but I've given some people some, and I'm going to make sure that Pat can do it. If you want to know what goes on in immigration on a national level, you can sign up for free with an organization called numbersusa.org. They will tell you what's going on in immigration, and they will send you an email where you can say, click here, and a fax will come out, pre-written, in your congressman's office. Now on the state level, if you want to know what's going on immigration, you have to come to me because I'm the only one who goes to the Capitol every day during session, has been for the last 12 years, has helped write legislation like I just mentioned, has fought in committee against the Chamber of Commerce and the far left to get the bills passed, and then gone and harangued the politicians because they won't enforce the laws. If you will please consider getting on another email list, I do not make any money from this. The Dustin Inman Society is a nonprofit organization that I've organized. It is invented to honor the name of my friend's only child, Dustin, who was killed on Father's Day weekend 15 years ago by an illegal alien who had a North Carolina driver's license on the way to go camping for Father's Day down in Legislature. The Dustin Inman Society. Every phone call helps. When we are in session in Atlanta, every single phone call and email to a legislator makes a difference. Just as every email and phone call that's not made makes a difference. On immigration in Atlanta, they know, the legislators, the governor, everybody knows that the media intentionally gives you a spectrum of issues and knowing you can't focus on any one of them. The transportation tax thing made me want to pull my hair out. $1 billion a year, okay? People went crazy because they didn't know that they're already spending $2.5 billion a year on crime. So that people who are running the Chamber of Commerce, the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, the Metro Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, the agriculture lobby, so that they can make more money. You are paying $2.5 or $3 billion a year so they can make more money. And it cannot be stopped by sending me back to the Capitol alone. I need some help. And that help comes in the form of educated emails and phone calls. So I had dinner with Rob and Pat. And they had to listen to me talk all through dinner. Thank you for my dinner. You guys don't have to buy me dinner. You have to listen to me talk a little more. Legislators are telling us what's on their mind when they don't mean to. I have heard legislators say, with contempt, and the contempt level, folks, under the Gold Dome is at a record high right now. I have heard them say that those people, like you, have so many issues. They're like a mile wide and half an inch deep. They can see you being led around from transportation tax to Common Core to school board to yada yada, and you never focus, nobody can, never focus on any one thing, and therefore, really and truly, no offense, nothing really gets done. But on immigration, they know that you don't know even the questions to ask because you don't know the issues that are up. So that gets right to it. Right now, Georgia, Republican-ruled Georgia, where we have a Republican supermajority in the Senate. Now, supermajority means that they can literally do anything they want. They don't need a single Democrat vote. And nearly a supermajority in the House. Republican-ruled Georgia is issuing driver's licenses to illegal aliens. Folks, what is a national ID card? What is a de facto way that we all identify ourselves, prove who we are? How many times a day do you use your driver's license? When you write a check, when I go into the Capitol, when I go into a federal building, when you board an airplane, when you buy explosives, when you buy a handgun. The driver's license is the de facto national ID card. Did I mention that Republican-ruled Georgia is giving illegal aliens a driver's license? Okay. That cannot stand. And if you don't do something about this, I can tell you in a minute what to expect in the future. Because I know what's going around in other parts of the country. Here's the trick. You are going to hear when, and I hope you do, you contact your local elected officials and the governor's office. You're going to hear, well, they're not really illegal illegals. I'm not really a bald. What Obama did when the amnesty failed, and another amnesty, smaller, called the DREAM Act, was designed to make legal about 40% of the population of illegal aliens that's already here. What Obama did was simply issue an executive action. It was not an executive order, that's a technical term that's numbered. But Obama said, I'm going around Congress. And he simply said, you go out, Department of Homeland Security, and you tell anybody who says that they got to the U.S. before they turned 17, and they are now 30 or younger, that they can stay. I'm going to give them a work permit. I'm going to give them the ability to get a driver's license on almost every state, and I'm going to give them a social security number. What he didn't say is, in parentheses, so they can stop using the stolen and fraudulent social security numbers that they've been using. These people call themselves dreamers. Obama has given legal, they don't have legal status. Obama has said, you're an illegal alien, but I'm going to give you a social security number and a work permit. Because, you know, we have a labor shortage, right? That's why wages are going up so much. So in Georgia, about 170,000 illegal aliens now have a Georgia driver's, 18,000 illegal aliens have a Georgia driver's license. I got that from DDS. And he's getting ready to expand that if the court action fails to include not just the children, but their parents. So the action that Obama did in 2012 was to make legal the children. You can't say anything about it because it's fault for the children. Okay, fine. I actually feel sorry for someone who was 8 months old or 6 weeks old or 4 years old and brought here illegally by their parents. I honestly do. I don't have any sympathy at all for a grown-up who came here illegally. I can tell you, conversely, that if I lived in Honduras, El Salvador, or Dirt Hut in Mexico, and I knew I could make $10 an hour instead of $10 a week, I'm out of there. I'm going to Georgia where I can work and make money. It's human nature. I'm angry that my government hasn't stopped it, and I'm angry that the employers who run my government will continually hire these people while Americans, including immigrants who are here illegally, stand in the unemployment line. Georgia is issuing driver's licenses to the illegal aliens to whom Obama has given a work permit and a social security number. And what I'm telling you is that existing Georgia law that I helped create says you cannot get a driver's license. We're not going to give driver's licenses to illegal aliens. So if you want a driver's license, you're going to have to show us a social security number or a work permit. Well, voila. Now, the illegals, 18,000 of them and growing, have a driver's license. P.S. They also have access to our public benefits. P.S. Those public benefits include unemployment compensation. Georgia is part of a lawsuit to stop Obama's second action, not the first, his second action for the parents. If that court action fails, then about 170,000 people just like that will get get a driver's license, and it will grow from there. If this is not stopped, what's coming next, as has happened in California, in New Mexico, in New York, what's coming next, folks, is illegal aliens scholarships, illegal aliens getting in-state tuition. I want to sit there for a minute, because if you are going to give someone who came here illegally in-state tuition because they landed in Georgia, but you are going to tell somebody from Chattanooga whose family came here lawfully that they can't go to UGA at the same rate, they have to pay 4 times more than the illegal alien who landed in Blairsville, this cannot stand. And if we let it stand, it will. Right now, illegal aliens are getting law licenses in California. That will happen here. Illegal alien lawyers, illegal alien school teachers. Why do people in Chicago and New Mexico, I had the state wrong. Why are the people who are hiring, and they're not just coming, people are coming in an office and say, okay, we'll hire. They're going out and recruiting them. We're hiring the illegals because they have so much in common and speak the language of our student body. We are a nation of laws, folks. We are a state of laws, and they're laughing at us. They're laughing at you, and they're laughing at me when I go to the Capitol. Oh, there's DA, he's the immigration dude. Now they can pat me on the head because nobody's calling their phone. Because when somebody picks up the phone or goes to talk to their legislator, they talk about the transportation tax and Common Core. So you can decide for yourself. I should go to 8 o'clock or quarter of.
Well, you got to go at 8 till 8.
Okay. You can decide for yourself what you think the most important issue in Georgia is. Okay? I can tell you this. Here's an example. I asked a question a lot, what's the most important issue? And somebody will raise their hand And they'll say, education. Or I'll go someplace and speak, and there's 4 speakers, and they'll put me last. And you'll have Dr. Smith talking about healthcare and Obamacare. And then they'll have Professor X who will talk to you about your taxes. And they'll go down the line, and then they're going to have, this is an expert on education. They're going to tell you why you should contact your state school board and your local school board. And then they'll say, and our last speaker, this is D.A. King, he's going to talk about immigration. He's going to talk about illegal immigration. And what fascinates me is people cannot see, and this is the media's goal, people cannot immediately and automatically see that if you have people coming into your country illegally and using your jobs, benefits, and services, that it's all connected. If I had time, I would defy anybody to bring up an issue in Georgia that I can't immediately and lucidly connect to the crime of illegal immigration and illegal employment. Your jobs, your wages. Education, here's one. What is the largest part by far? I forget the ratio. You can ask Senator Gooch, who you've been first to ask. What the ratio, what part of the state budget goes to education? I think it's 60%, but please, if I'm wrong, don't tell Gooch that I said it wrong. Just tell them I was always right. My point is, the majority of the state budget goes to education costs. Coincidentally, folks, what do you think the largest expense of illegal immigration is? Education. We are educating illegal aliens and the children of illegal aliens. Our school systems are becoming multi-language. In Fulton, DeKalb County, I even forget, it was in the 20s of how many languages are being spoken and taught in their schools. My entire point, without belaboring it, is that illegal immigration in Georgia is not a separate issue from your taxes, your quality of life, and your health care, and your rule of law, and your jobs, and your wages, and your grandkids' future. It just isn't a separate issue. What I've been trying to do is urge people to stop having a wide spectrum of little tiny issues and meeting once a month to hear somebody talk or to bellyache or to ask a question and then go home and wait for the next meeting. And I'm not trying to be rude. I'm trying to be constructive and help. I urge you to consider, as a group, being tenacious and choosing 2 issues, maybe 3. I can tell you how to be effective. Take 2 or 3 issues and grab them by the throat and become knowledgeable and become active. And when January kicks off and the state legislature goes into session and your legislators drive down 515 and Highway 5 to get to the Capitol, that they know for sure one thing they have to do, or 3 things that they have to do, or holy cow, we don't want to go home and say we didn't do anything. And I can tell you, in Georgia, there is no more important issue than illegal immigration because it encompasses everything we've been talking about tonight. One more thing. We had a bill, Senate Bill 6. I helped write it. It's a good bill. We're going to add to it. Senate Bill 6, in part, would stop illegal aliens from getting a Georgia driver's license. All illegal aliens, whether Obama has said we're not going to deport you or not. It would simply change existing law with key words so that even if Obama has given an illegal alien the Social Security number and the work permit, they cannot access a driver's license. It did a lot of other things. It does a lot of other things. What we're going to do is add to it. We're going to say, oh, you know the 167,000 criminal aliens that Obama has released that have been convicted of violent crimes? Sheriff will know about this. Murder, kidnapping, rape, drug dealing. Obama is letting people on the streets who are supposed to be deported after they've been convicted of these violent felonies. And I'm not making this up. Some of them now have been on the street long enough where they have been rearrested for committing more crimes and then released for the second time. I'm not making this stuff up because the goal is over borders. We're going to add to Senate Bill 6 to require the state of Georgia to keep a registry from federal records of all criminal aliens who have been released in Georgia. And we are going to hope for law enforcement support on this. We want to know where these criminal aliens that Obama is releasing are when they're in Georgia. If we can have a sexual predator registry nationwide, we can have a registry here in Georgia of criminal aliens. We're going to try to put into law that an illegal alien cannot become a law enforcement officer like they are in other states. That an illegal alien cannot become a teacher or a lawyer and cannot get in-state tuition. We are trying to get your attention. The main part of the bill is to stop illegal aliens from getting a driver's license. Because if you're here illegally and you can get a job or a driver's license in Tennessee, Alabama, or Florida, but you cannot do that in Georgia, you're going to leave. And then we're going to start saving that $2.5 billion. But more importantly, and for me as a conservative, we are going to start rebuilding the rule of law upon which we formed a nation. And I don't care if that sounds corny to anybody, but it all starts with what I just described. We need help in getting your pressure on your legislators to get a bill passed that stops driver's licenses to illegal aliens. And if you want to add in, we want to know where these criminal aliens are. We want a registry, and we don't want illegal alien police officers, school teachers, and lawyers. That makes for a good 3-minute conversation with your legislator. But if enough people contact them and hound them enough times, they will start calling the Speaker of the House, and they will start calling Casey Cagle, the Lieutenant Governor, and they will talk amongst each other, says, you know, we really have to do something about this again. My people are going crazy. I'm going to have to do something. That's the only thing that is going to make this happen. Otherwise, the Chamber of Commerce folks and the agriculture industry, they run the Georgia Capitol right now. I could come do a whole hour and give you horror stories about what goes on in the Capitol with the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, the Atlanta Chamber of Commerce, and the ag industry. P.S. Probably you never heard this, but agriculture is the only industry in the country who has a specific visa that allows them to bring in as much legal foreign labor as they would ever need. It's called an H-2A visa. And the only reason I'm telling you that is because the North Georgia senators and representatives are going to say, well, you know, we can't really do anything about stopping illegal aliens from getting a driver's license because those mean old farmers from South Georgia come to the Capitol and they tell us we have to. Please tell them that if the ag lobbyists and the ag people who are in the legislature from South Georgia want to, they can get all the legal labor from foreign lands that they want to with the H-2A visa. Also tell them, and I know this to be a fact, none of those lobbyists in the Capitol carry guns or billy clubs. Nobody gets beat up physically. No legislator does anything in that Capitol by force. They do it because they are terrified more of the lobbyists from the Chamber of Commerce than they are of you. And that's a fact. You have to reverse that. You have to make them tell those lobbyists, you can say whatever you want, but I know what I have to do. I'm going to do one more thing. Thank you. Senate Bill 6, obviously a Senate bill, by a very brave young legislator from Columbus, Senator Josh McCoon. I would recommend that you have Josh McCoon for a speaker. I have my own ideas about what your 2 or 3 issues should be. If I had a group, I would shoot at illegal immigration and religious freedom so hard that those guys wouldn't know what happened. I would have Josh McCoon come and speak about both of them, as he is the sponsor of the Religious Freedom Bill and Senate Bill 6, the driver's license bill. But what I started out saying, with great respect to all people who ran for office, the contempt level in that Capitol for you and me is at astronomical heights. And I want to point out that while there was at least a bill created in the Senate to stop illegal aliens from getting a driver's license, there is no such bill in the House. Quiet as mice in the House. We're not going to wake up, we don't want that monster on us, because then we have to fight with the Speaker and the Chamber and all the lobbyists. There is no effort in the House to stop illegal aliens from getting a driver's license. You might want to mention that if you know anybody in the House of Representatives. Now, do I have time for questions?
Yes, you do.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
May I just want to really make a comment, and I'm sure that a lot of people know, I work in healthcare, so I see the damaging effect that happens to our country when these illegal aliens come in. They get on our Medicare and our Medicaid, and then we pay and pay and pay for housing, health care, their school, they can't speak English, and so we're spoon feeding their kids. I mean, it's a huge problem. And I agree with what you're saying. We have laws in our country that for legal becoming citizens. And one of the best things about that law is that they need to relinquish their citizenship from their country and become Americans. They need to adhere to our Constitution, our laws, and become Americans. But they don't do that when they come here illegally. And then we accommodate them by speaking their language, by giving them the money and the food and the housing. This is wrong.
Well, I agree. So, can I take what you just said as your promise that you're going to contact both of your
Absolutely.
legislators?
Absolutely.
And are you going to tell them that we're going to stop issuing driver's licenses to illegal aliens or bust?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Did you hear me say, yes, ma'am, I want to make a point, but I just remember. Did you hear me say up there that one of the cool goals would be to enforce our immigration, border, and employment laws as strictly and as enthusiastically as does Mexico?
Yes.
Guess what, folks? A, Mexico doesn't have many illegal aliens, and B, the ones that are there, they don't get any kind of a driver's license. Let me make that sink in. Georgia is doing something to help illegal aliens that Mexico will not do. If you want to make that point to your legislators, that would be cool. Yes, ma'am.
When I went to renew my driver's license, I had to have either a birth certificate or passport. I had to have a social security card, or they would have taken my Medicare number, I suppose, as social security. And I had to have 2 proofs of my residency, bills, statements, something such as that. Now, you're saying that these illegals only have a job, only have a work permit and a social security number. Well, where can I get a work permit where I don't have to have all that stuff?
Okay, I'm really sorry, I forgot you were taking. I cannot speak settings.
That's all right.
I apologize. It's a great question. Everybody hear that?
Yeah.
First of all, were you born in the United States?
Certainly, yes.
You do not need a work permit. Only non-citizens need a work permit. You know what we all call a green card? A green card means that somebody came here. That is the definition of immigrant. Legally, with the intention of permanent residence, they have permission to work. Somebody comes here legally, temporarily, is given another document called the EAD, Employment Authorization Document, or a work permit. And they're given a social security number. What Obama did was cheapen the system by giving those 2 documents to these illegal aliens.
Well, he gives it to them, but that doesn't mean they should do a driver's license with it.
Well, that's why I'm here. Because in good faith, years ago, the Georgia Code, the law was written to say, if you don't have a social security number and or a work permit, that you cannot get a driver's license. And that, back then, excluded illegal aliens. See, Obama has jumped over that law by giving them those 2 documents. But they bring in a birth certificate that might be from a different country. They bring in a water bill. You know, it could be from LJ or Blairsville, Georgia. They bring in the same documents that you do because Obama has made that possible. But I want to impress upon you, when your legislators tell you, well, I don't even know how many illegals illegal illegals, or they're not illegal illegals, they're coming up with so much mumbo jumbo, it's hard to keep up. It's 18,473 as of last Monday. Illegal aliens with Obama's Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. Now, for the parents, the separate thing called DAPA, D-A-P-A, for the parents, would automatically make another 170,000 illegal aliens added on to that 18,000 become eligible for a driver's license. Time's a wasting, folks. If we don't do it the next session, I don't think we're ever going to do it. Georgia is marching backwards under the leadership of the Republicans, including Nathan Deal. I'm not a member of any political party. I hope you tell the county chairman and any of your legislators what I just said. But we are marching towards that and away from conservatism here in Georgia because that's what the Chamber of Commerce ordered.
I guess I'm a little naive, but what does the news media hope to gain by lying to the public?
It's distracted from facts that will
So
harm
what do
us.
they gain? What are they getting?
I mean, look at all the money that we're losing.
I didn't hear you question.
I said, what is the news media to gain by lying to people?
Ooh, thank you. The question is, what does the news media have to gain by suppressing information so that you will unknowingly allow to happen what's happening? Because 99% of the media nationwide and in Georgia are die-hard liberals. And they can't even explain to you why they do it, but it has something to do with diversity. And if we just do this, it's the right thing to do because these poor people, you know, we're a nation of immigrants. And these people should have everything that you have. And life is unfair. You know, borders are basically unfair. The media hides things from you so that you won't do anything about it because they have an agenda. And their agenda is not very cold water. It's Barack Obama and Jorge Ramos. That's why. Yes, ma'am.
My main concern with them having a driver's license, what is to keep them from registering to vote?
Ah, now we're getting somewhere.
And that does happen in Texas.
Now, the answer to that question, the question was what keeps somebody with a driver's license who's here illegally under Obama's amnesty that's not an amnesty from registering to vote? The driver's license they have is the same driver's license that an Argentinian or a German or a Mexican businessman would have if he came here on a visa legally to work. Mercedes, whatever. It's the same driver's license. And on the top it says limited term. And it's supposed to run out when the visa runs out plus 6 months, which is ridiculous, but that's what it says. We're giving the same driver's license to illegal aliens that we're giving to any businessman who wants to come do business. What you're supposed to accept is that there's no way the system can ever malfunction to let an illegal alien with a driver's license, a social security number, a power bill, ever register to vote. We know that it's already happened even before the driver's licenses. So your answer to your bottom line answer to your question is there are regulations in place that should prevent that. Nobody thinks that it will every time prevent that. But the ability to vote is certainly part of this. There's a move, before I forget, in New York, there's a move on now, and in California, to let non-citizens vote in state and local elections. That will progress, folks,
Yeah.
into, well, we let legally present non-citizens vote. Now we should let illegally present non-citizens vote because that's what's fair.
What
And that's
argument
what
do they have to, excuse me, but what argument do they have to let a alien, a non-citizen vote?
it's taxation without representation is their argument. I'm going to plug myself. I do not make money from this. I work on donations. I write about all of this, so your question is right on the money. You can go on the Numbers USA or my website on the blog page. The website's not up to date, but you can learn this for yourself and you can get all the arguments. But that's what's coming. Yes, ma'am.
I had a talk radio show in New York State in the early 1990s. and the Republicans were in charge of New York State at that time. They passed the most restrictive gun laws in the history of the state of New York. I don't know if it's a news bulletin or not, but every state is going through what Georgia is doing. Our politicians are so corrupt in all 50 states that it's pathetic. And we've let our state governments get as out of control or more so than our federal. And to try and get conservatives to attend a rally in Albany, New York, forget it. You get 25, 30 people.
For the first 10 years that I did this, you're right on the money. Sorry for interrupting, but the first 10 years I did this, I organized rallies at the Georgia Capitol and in Washington. And what you just said is so right on. Trying to get a conservative to go to a rally and hold up a sign is like pulling teeth. And there's a bunch of reasons for that. A, they're busy working. C, they're embarrassed. A lot of people would be embarrassed to come stand on the street, hold up a sign that says secure our borders, because they're afraid to be called names by their neighbors. I quit doing rallies. I would love to do another rally, but I couldn't get people to come. I can tell you what I have seen. I've been at the Georgia Capitol during session when I've seen the press said 10,000. I don't think so. I think it was more like 5,000 screaming in a foreign language, screaming illegal aliens, screaming at us in 2011 that if you pass that bill, we will not obey. And that was the only thing they said in English. They had illegal aliens as traffic guards for these 5,000 people screaming on Washington Street. I wrote about this. I'm guessing you guys don't know about this happening in 2011, but it did. And both of your legislators were there for 2011. Ask them, what's it look like to see 5,000 people screaming in a foreign language, we're here illegally, we will never leave? That's a good question.
What right do they have? I mean, I don't get this. Where do they think they have a right to be?
Their right is our ability to let them do it.
Exactly.
They're
Well, that's what I'm
99%
saying.
leftists, and to be fair to them, people in Mexico are taught, and I'm singling out Mexico because I know this to be true. They are taught that they have the right as human beings to migrate any place on the North American continent that they choose to be, including, especially the southwest of the United States, because it used to be part of Mexico. They are taught that migration should be free and open. It's open borders. The Democrat Party leftists, like Barack Obama, if you think it can't get worse, just watch.
Yeah.
They want to get as much immigration in here as possible because they know that low-wage people do not vote Republican. But I have to change that. Low-wage workers don't vote conservative because now conservative and Republican is not interchangeable like it was when I was a kid with Barry Goldwater. And the Chamber of Commerce Republicans, the establishment Republicans, want as much immigration as they can get here because it makes the Chamber of Commerce happy and pat them on the head and say, you move on up in your career because now we are getting even more cheap labor and we're making more money and we're going to give you campaign funds. You need to know that's how the game works. From the city, county, state, and federal level, there is not any difference at all. I'm telling you very clearly, you do not run the state of Georgia. We, the people, do not run the state of Georgia. I have an example. I'm going to do another question, but somebody remind me, the next question, please ask me about unrecorded votes, because I'll go over. Who else has a question? Yes, sure.
Well, still pay a lot of the money. U.S. Senator over in Virginia or West Virginia had $5.5 million to run on, you know. Where'd that money come from? The job only pays, what, $170,000? You know? And I noticed that when I was running, you know, we have the campaign laws here, quote unquote. And I would have people come up and try to give you money. Look, it's $100 from each name and your address and stuff. You're like, you don't really need that, do you?
And you're running for sheriff?
No, you know, I need the name and address as much as $1,000 done. So I don't till they stop putting money, the lobbyists, in the pockets of the legislators who are in the store.
Yes, sir.
That's why they're there. And the one thing that I can't explain, I'm gonna use Harry Reid, and I hate him, I absolutely hate him to death. But I'm gonna use him for an example. He's gotta be a rich man.
He is a
John Kerry. Why are they bent on ruining the United States? They can't give them enough more money that they would ever get around to spending. That's what baffles me. Why people like that, are bent on destroying the United States.
Neil Bortz had an answer, a simple answer. I'm not trying to be smart on the show. Neil Bortz had a saying when he was on the radio. He said, if you want to take apart a liberal in the most basic terms, please understand that they think everybody should have the same amount of stuff, except for them. I can't explain a liberal. I can't tell you that Harry Reid is of the opinion now that illegal immigration is a good thing and immigration is a better thing. But I can tell you that we have Harry Reid quotes on videotape from 15 years ago where he was as adamantly against illegal immigration as everybody in this room. How to figure out how way to explain liberalism, sir, I am not that educated, I don't have that power. I can only tell you what I know to be going on. And what the sheriff just said, the bottom line is money. We, the people, do not run our government. So earlier I said, please get 2 or 3 issues. I think 2 is enough. What you need, I started on this a minute ago and I got lost because I didn't. Senate Bill 6 was designed to stop illegal aliens from getting a Georgia driver's license by altering the language of the law that exists. We didn't think we were going to get it out of committee. We did think we'd get a hearing. We didn't even get a hearing. The person who runs the committee, the Senate Public Safety Committee, is a representative of the South Georgia Agriculture Lobby. He was elected, handpicked, and he is the chairman. He decides what bill will get a hearing. He doesn't really. Casey Cagle decides that. But as far as you're supposed to know, the chairman of the committee decides which bills get a hearing. Now, he has told the sponsor of the bill that some of my people, some of my farmers, have illegal aliens as foremen, and we don't want to take away their driver's license until they make it more difficult to get to work. So anyway, we didn't get a hearing, but we had a plan B. And that plan B is a governmental, it's a little administrative trick, it's called a floor amendment. Now there's a bunch of rules involved, but it's safe to say, if a bill is going to the Senate, and it's already passed the House, and it has anything to do with topic A, in this case driver's licenses, that you can amend the bill that is germane. You can take that bill that has a driver's license code number on it, chapter 40, doesn't matter. When that bill comes up for consideration in the Senate, any senator, whether he's Republican or Democrat, can produce a change to that bill. It's already passed the House, a change being an amendment. And before that bill is considered, he can say, I want to add this language to that driver's license bill. This is my floor amendment. And then the Senate can vote as an entire body on whether or not to accept this change or amendment. Now, here's where it gets really, really ugly, guys. Because the default method of deciding on whether or not to approve a floor amendment in the Georgia State Senate, which has a supermajority of Republicans, is by an unrecorded raise your hand vote. You guys seen, who's been in the Capitol? You seen those boards in the Senate, in the House? Those boards that record the votes? They light up? All right. That's a permanent record. The default, let me say this again. A bill comes over from the House that has something to do with driver's licenses. Senator Josh McCoon stands up and says, I have a floor amendment for that, and that floor amendment will alter the language of the law so that illegal aliens cannot get a driver's license in the state of Georgia. And then he says, I want yeas and nays. Now, all that means is I want a recorded vote. Do you know how the Senate votes on whether or not to have a recorded vote?
A non-recorded vote.
With an unrecorded vote. Just let that sink in a minute.
But isn't that against the law, against our Constitution? No, aren't we supposed to have recorded votes?
No, ma'am, but I'm going to get there.
Okay.
Stay with me. I want to say it again. The Georgia State Senate, controlled by a supermajority of Republicans, has an unrecorded hand vote on whether or not to decide to have an unrecorded hand vote. The Senate rules can be changed at any time. I had a very long conversation with a very nice man who runs the Secretary of the Senate's office. As a matter of fact, he is the Secretary of the Senate. What you're going to hear is that we could no way run the state Senate if we had to record our vote on everything. Now, Rob pointed out something pretty telling at dinner. The Senate is 56 people. The House of Representatives is 180 people. House of Representatives, unless nobody has an objection to something, has a recorded vote on everything. What you're going to be told, I promise you, is that we can't change that rule to record every vote because it'll just take too long. All 56 of us. And it's hogwash. It's more hairdryer stuff. Okay?
Steve Gooch.
Sir?
A quote from Steve Gooch, you almost said it exactly.
Could you repeat that?
Steve Gooch, when I asked him about recording the votes, he said, we don't have time to record all the votes, it'd take too long. And I said, the House does.
You can ask me later when Josh McCoon had his floor amendment going, and this all happens in less than a minute. I was sitting in the balcony, watching. Josh McCoon stands up, the bill comes over, Josh McCoon stands up and says, I have a floor amendment. He explains the floor amendment. He takes a battery of questions from people who say, we have to give it to the children, or I have a sous chef, Tommy Williams, senator from South Georgia. I have a restaurant. One of these illegal aliens is my sous chef. I don't want to lose him. What am I going to tell him? Then they have an unrecorded vote on whether or not to record the vote on the amendment. The manner of the vote is to raise your hand. Some senators went and hid out in the crowd. Some senators go under the balcony so you cannot see them. I'm not making this up. Some senators who sponsored the bill, we had 12 co-sponsors. Some senators who were co-sponsors of the bill didn't raise their hand to have a recorded vote. Here's the rule. Right now, a senator can say, I want a recorded vote. I move for yeas and nays. And the president of the Senate, by rules, has to be able to find 5 other senators, in addition to the senator who made that motion, to raise their hand to support the motion for a recorded vote. It takes the original senator plus 5 more. That's the Senate rule. But only 4 people raised their hands, so the motion for a recorded vote failed. So you will never know how the unrecorded vote, you'll never know how your guy voted on the unrecorded vote when it lost, I think 26-19, I forgot. But the motion to add the language to the driver's license bill failed with an unrecorded vote. And they got to the unrecorded vote with another unrecorded vote. Folks, I submit, if you want to pick 1, 2, or 3 issues, that you insist that the Georgia State Senate get rid of the rule that allows any unrecorded votes.
Because how are they accountable to us then? If we are
That's
supposed,
it.
they can't be accountable to us if we don't know that they voted one way or another.
Yes, ma'am, and that's part of the game. And I love this so much, I just can't tell you how much fun I'm having making sure that everybody knows that the Georgia State Senate, controlled by Republicans, has an unrecorded vote to decide whether or not to have an unrecorded vote. You can change this. Yes, ma'am.
And when I asked our Senator, Steve Gooch, how he had voted for the calling for a recorded vote. He said he could not remember
Oh, how
how
convenient.
he
Now,
had
that's
voted.
Hillary's answer.
Yeah, right. How
Folks, let me tell you
convenient.
something. There was as much pressure, it was quiet. There was as much pressure on the state senators to make sure that Senate Bill 6 never got a recorded vote as there was for the transportation tax. Because here's what would have happened. If one more senator had had the courage to raise his hand and Josh McCoon's motion for yeas and nays, a recorded vote on his amendment, if one more person had raised their hand, if we get a recorded vote and they know you can go back and look to see how they voted on getting driver's licenses to illegal aliens, this thing passes by a mile. Okay? The only reason it failed is because they know that you cannot tell who voted how. But there's another wrinkle to this. I was there. And I can't see the whole floor at one time. But I have a friend who was on the floor. She couldn't see the whole floor at one time. I have a friend who works in the Secretary of the Senate's office. She gave her input, who she remembered raising her hands. And every instant of the Senate and House proceedings on the floor are recorded and archived on video. On my website, the DustinInmanSociety.org, there's cards in the back. You can go, send me an email and I'll show you where, but you can go on the blog page, the only page I can afford to keep current. You can go and click on that video and fast forward to about noon on day 39, April 1st, my birthday. You can go watch this video and you can see who was just defiant and sat in their chair and raised their hand no. One guy from Americus, a man named Kirk, was a sponsor of the bill, didn't raise his hand for a recorded vote, and then raised his hand to vote no on the amendment. This is what goes on in that place.
So he could go back and tell his people we put it up on the floor and unfortunately it was turned
So,
down.
exactly. What we said was, you know, it was a good effort, and I voted for the amendment. You're never going to know if they voted for the amendment or not, because all it was a raise your hand. You can go check the video. I think it was 26 or 23, please forgive me. I think 26 senators voted for the amendment that would have been added to the bill that would have then been considered as a whole. So it wasn't like halfway home, but my point is this. You've got people with unrecorded votes coming home and talking to you about transparency and ethics. You've got people telling you they are conservatives. You've got people telling you that they are good stewards of your money. You've got people telling you that taxes are bad, but we have to pass this $1 billion tax for highways. I'm not against that. Personally, people don't like this, but I think if you're going to find $1 billion to improve your roads in Georgia, especially where I live, I think I probably am. I resent it that they didn't go the other way and try to find a way to save money instead of raising our taxes. And one brilliant way, folks, that you can save about $2.5 billion a year, or begin in that direction, is to start making Georgia as uncomfortable for illegal aliens as is Mexico.
Amen.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just unclear. I have SB 6 written down. I don't know, has it passed? Do we want it not to pass? Are we for it? I'm confused as to
Okay.
what's my position.
I understand. Here's my recommendation. I'm going to answer your question, but I know what you mean, because you're not neck deep in this stuff every day.
Right.
If you'll just remember the message and not the bill number, you're going to come out a lot more effectively.
But has it already passed?
No, ma'am.
Yeah.
Senate Bill 6 was not even allowed a hearing in its first committee.
And that bill says that there should be no,
The Senate Bill 6 contains language, in part, that will alter existing laws so that illegal aliens could not get a driver's license. Okay? But we couldn't get a hearing on that. So then we tried an amendment to that effect on the floor, which it didn't pass. It didn't even get added on with an unrecorded vote. Okay? But people in government know that most people don't know how their government works. It's sad but true. So my idea is, instead of you trying to say pass Senate Bill 6, is you simply stand up very clearly and say, stop giving driver's licenses to illegal aliens and stop having unrecorded votes forever, or else. There's your 2 sentences.